Are we both limited to the same method of knowing the number
I think,
in the
well,
same way?
we can get into the philosophy of the efficacy of mathematics, but I would say yes.
If someone else thinks that astrology is true, if we're like, hey, we're not confident, and they are confident, must one of us be mistaken about that?
Yes, I think absolutely.
If reincarnation was
Sorry.
true, hypothetically, if it was true, let's just say it is for a second, would you want to know if it's true? What does make someone open-minded to anything?
Hey, I don't.
If you were to ask them a question about reincarnation, are you open to what they're saying?
I'm open to hearing why they believe it. I'm not open to receiving it. No, I would tell them. I'm not interested in embracing the doctrine for myself.
I am interested and open to receiving what you say about Christianity.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, in the chat is just like how we filled out the survey last time, and here it is. And so, like, okay. I'm not here to attack your views. As a matter of fact,
I know.
What I was hoping to do was, and we don't need to do it today. We don't need to do it ever if you don't want to. I was just wanting to go through and say, how do you view number one? And then I was just going to listen to what it is that you had to say. And then I was going to ask you questions to better get to know you about it. And then I was going to do that for every single one of these. And I was going to be open to you asking me questions about it too. That's what I have in mind.
Well, we could do that if you want. Whatever you want to do. It's fine. So whatever you want to do.
Okay. Do you have the link? Do you want to open it so you can look at it too?
Oh, I can. I can't look at your screen and that link at the same time because I'm on my iPad.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, well
then I can if I go to one screen, I lose this screen altogether. So I can't see you if I go to the survey. So you can just screen share it. That's fine with me.
All right. Okay, well, I'll just go ahead and get going on it then and share this. So I figured let's start with all the ones in which we do view them the same. Or at least it seems like we view them the same. It's funny, number 19 is one that you commented on in our workshop, which was good. That was fun. Yeah, why not? Let's start with number 19 and let's just talk about the ones in which we agree. I often investigate beliefs that do not match my own.
That's what I do for a living.
Right. And I don't really I have a Patreon, I guess, but I don't really do it for a living. I mostly do it because I think it's fascinating and fun.
That is my job.
Oh, yeah. So if someone were to disagree to 19, what question would you ask them to get to know them better?
Well, I think I would just, the questions are unique, but I think for that, I'd be, depends on what we're talking about, but I'm not sure that there are people that, maybe there are there people that don't actually engage in some way with beliefs that are contrary to their own. I think everybody does that, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. If you're just out in the workaday world, you encounter that all the time.
Right.
So I'm not sure that would be something that I would really raise an eyebrow to. I talk to a lot of Christians who are, Brady and I, the co-host that I did with my podcast that I work with, we went to a small Baptist church to give a presentation a couple of summers ago. And we had this sweet, wonderful little Baptist church. And, it was an elderly congregation. We had a lady came up to me in the hall afterwards. It was such a nice presentation. I didn't talk, Brady did. And she's like, I talked to an atheist once. And it's like atheists were aliens or something. It's like, and you talk to atheists? I talked to an atheist once. And so, but she's super sweet. She didn't have anything bad to say. She just thought that atheists were just, well, you don't talk to those people. And not everybody's cut out to do that. So I think 19 is, I think everybody does it to some degree. And I don't think it's, if they don't want to do it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see that as a big deal necessarily. I mean, probably when you're 19 or 22, you just graduated college, you think you know what the world's all about. There are probably a lot of collegiates that, I know there's a lot of middle schoolers that don't do that. Life only consists of what they believe. But in a lot of ways, we maintain our middle school mentality to some degree. But obviously, I agree with it's good to do that. And if you don't do it, you probably should. But
yeah, right, yeah, and
no big deal.
Okay.
If you think you have a handle on the truth, then it shouldn't.
Do you have any questions for me on 19?
No.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. Number 24. It is possible that some of my beliefs are not true. It's a good old Socrates.
Yeah.
That's what I think of when I think of that one.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine somebody disagreeing to that?
Jesus would.
Jesus would disagree?
Yeah, he's the only one that knows.
I probably agree with you there.
Yeah.
Like if a God does in fact know everything, then that would be
omniscience wins that one. So
yeah,
God would now Jesus, the human being, Jesus was fully human, and he would ask questions. And this perplexed me for a long time as a young believer. How can Jesus not know who touched him? How can he ask questions? How could he say he was ignorant of anything? And then I started to understand the doctrine of God being of Jesus being fully God, fully man, as a fully human being, just like you and me. His knowledge was limited. His space and place was limited. He was fully human. But then as God, he knew everything.
So do you think you would have questions for Jesus?
Oh yeah. I got questions for Jesus.
Yeah. Right. If a human being
he hasn't told me everything.
Can you imagine a human being other than Jesus saying that they disagree to 24? That some of their
that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Yes, I can.
Yeah. So like I have sat down and
I've talked to people like that. Have you ever taught middle school, Nathan?
Middle school? I actually taught a class on portrait drawing in a middle school once.
Okay.
Well, it was just one day though.
Kids love to draw. Yeah, well, kids love to draw, so you had their attention, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, that's possible. We know it's possible. There are people out there like that. I was probably like that one time.
Right.
I can't possibly be wrong about anything.
So
I might argue my younger brothers, one of my brothers feels that way about politics. He can't possibly be wrong about politics.
Right.
So, yeah, anyway, moving on.
How are you feeling, by the way? So we just did 3. And I'm fine with stopping there if you want. And we can just talk about other things. Though I happen to
think it's up to you. If you do a review video of this, which is fine with me, other people see it. I don't want to look like I'm telling you what to do. You do.
If there is a review video for this, I would probably abstain in the hopes that you and I maintain good rapport and a good relationship, so that
Oh, they're fun. Do what you. I mean, I part of the problem with this is I'm back in my mind. I'm going. Other people are going to see this. So the perception I don't want to give to your audience is that I'm trying to steer you in some direction.
I feel the same way. So that's why I just offered, like, I keep trying to bring consent back into this because, like, I have watched one of your interviews before where you felt like you described it, and correct me if I'm misquoting you, though you described sometimes SE as like feeling like you're a cattle and you can't turn around.
And you're cattle bent. And I did qualify that by saying that some people do make you feel that way. And see, I always tried to preface my statements by saying, I grant that not all people who practice SE do this, but especially on Twitter. I should have probably rephrased that, especially in social media. I feel like I'm being dragged down a cattle chute in one direction.
Yeah,
for the
that's
purpose
not.
of
Yeah,
getting,
that's exactly something I want to avoid.
yes.
So, like, if that ever comes up, please let me know. And your camera just turned off.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. That hand-angled iPad.
There we go. See, I lose the screen if I'm in the. Anyway, so I'm. I feel like because I'm a critic of street epistemology, that the same kind of goes for me. I don't want to feel like I've told you how to talk to yourself.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Like, you don't want to tell me not to.
Well, I said to Nathan ahead of time, you can only ask me these questions. You can only ask me these questions, and don't ask me these questions.
Right. Yeah. It's weird. You and I are trying to do this balancing act, and I'm just trying to make you feel comfortable. And I feel like that.
Oh, if I didn't, I wouldn't even be here. You know, I'm not going to go back and
right.
chat with Tom Jump, because I know Tom, but I don't feel comfortable going back in that format because I don't function well in that. You know, I went back and watched some of that third one, and I thought, oh my gosh, I could see in my face and my voice where I completely lost interest in the conversation, because every time I said something, Tom's like, nope, no. And, you know, after a while, I'm like, I'm not interested in this conversation because it's not a conversation. And I was disappointed. So about 40 minutes into it, I'm like, and I didn't want to hang up the phone. I didn't want to just click off, and I didn't want to make him look bad. So I was like, okay, I'm going to hang in here. Hopefully maybe I can say something redeeming. But I lost all interest in my notes that I had. I lost all interest in everything in that. So I was not comfortable. And it wasn't because he was, I could have, if he was more conversation.
Because that's a different thing, and I only have so much time.
Well, okay. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was tangential.
It's all good.
Nothing against Tom.
I'm just more sensitive about your time, and I know that I don't want you to feel like you have to talk to me all night, because I will.
Oh, I won't.
If you let me talk,
I'm going to bed. I like sleep. You will not get all of my. I don't. I cut myself off. So
yeah,
no worries. Go ahead. Wherever you want to go.
Just to wrap up this section on when we should change our minds, the parts in which we agree was about investigating beliefs that don't match ours, finding it beneficial to find out when we're wrong, and entertaining the possibility that some of our beliefs are maybe not true. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine I have a box of truth, and this box is kind of like Pandora's box. You could ask it any question you want, and when you open the box, you look inside, and it gives you everything that you need to see to believe that it is or isn't the case. Is there any question at all you would not ask the box?
Oh, well, you just described the Bible pretty well.
Okay. So imagine imagine the truth of the Bible is also in the box. Like, if you open it up, and if the truth was that it wasn't the case, anything, and this is literally any and all things you can imagine. Is there anything that you wouldn't want to know, or is there anything that you wouldn't ask the box?
Yes, because people think that knowledge, that acquiring knowledge should be unlimited. We should have this unlimited ability to acquire knowledge.
That's what the thought experiment's about.
Right. I think there needs to be limits to. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ask questions or you shouldn't seek truth. There's a fine line here. The idea is that I'm going to consume knowledge to the point where I start to become somewhat, or think I become somewhat omniscient, that more knowledge will solve my problems, or it's my problem with books, right? I think I have more books, I can give better answers to people.
But I think there comes a time where knowledge, the quest for knowledge, is like the quest for money or power or pleasure, or there can be an excess, just like everything else. And so I think that no, I can tell you there are certain things I don't want to know. I don't want to know how and when I'm going to die. I want that in Jesus's hands. I don't want to have godlike knowledge, because I'll tell you, Nathan, as having been in this apologetics ministry now for a long time, I see the other side of what it's like in vocational ministry. There's nothing seedy going on. I mean, there are scandals. I mean, we all know what happened around Zacharias and things like that. But the like work
tangentially, through other channels.
Yeah, the kind of knowledge. So Christian apologists, the word apologist gets a bad rap, I think, in social media, because atheists just think we're idiots or whatever. We don't know anything. We're not scholars, so we're just generalists. But there's nothing wrong with being a generalist. But the idea of apologist is kind of a pejorative for a lot of atheists, because we're supposed to have the answers to biblical criticism, to history, to philosophy, to science. We're supposed to be able to say all of these things. And so in one sense, on a personal level, it's a tremendous burden. It has been for me to try to live up to the idea of apologist, AKA William Craig, Bill Craig, who does seem to possess a wide berth of knowledge. Or Frank Turek, whatever you think of him, he knows quite a bit about a lot. That there's this burden that as an apologist, I need to have the answers for everything. And I gave a talk at a high school a couple years ago on this.
I'm kind of curious. What do you think? Why do you think I asked the box of truth thought experiment?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
But I think, no, there are certain questions personally asking me that I wouldn't want to know. I wouldn't ask it certain questions. I wouldn't want to know my future. I don't want to know my future.
Sure. Yeah. Sometimes it's better to leave things a mystery.
Absolutely. Or just, I would be incredibly burdened. For example, like if anybody would.
How about this? If you can only ask the box things in which you are confident is true, is there anything that you mean wouldn't? So that would be another way to ask it. So like, if anything that you think is true could be challenged by this box, would you?
Sure.
You would. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if in other words, would I be willing to see what I'm wrong about?
Sure. That's basically, yeah. That would be another way to.
Yeah, ask. But I would say, yeah, I see what you mean. I misunderstood it first, but yeah, sure.
Well, that's okay, because I asked it two different ways. So you were on the right track both times.
Though if I was married, I don't know if I'd want to know that my spouse was being unfaithful.
Oh, that's interesting.
I would be crushed. I think I would want to know, especially if I really loved her, of course. That breaks my heart that happens to people.
Yeah.
And that's one reason why I'm not married, because I would be like, I would really have to trust somebody, and really, in this day and age, it's hard to do that. And that's the kind of knowledge that would just crush me. I don't know. That'd be hard.
And that's when I think we as humans need to really be sensitive to each other's well-being. Like, I can imagine feeling the same way, not wanting to know that something really terrible's happened to somebody I love, or that somebody I love has betrayed me in some way.
Right.
So, yeah, that's hard.
Or when you find out, I'll tell you another piece of knowledge I hate.
Okay.
YouTube comment sections under channels where I've been a guest on an atheist show. I don't want to know what goes on in the comment section, but my gosh, I open that box and I get super depressed after I read some of the comments.
Sure. Like you wouldn't want to.
Have you looked under Tom and I's videos?
Right. That's like
it's hell. It's living hell to read those things.
Right. And like what's going on with cancel culture out there on the internet, it's like people like do you think when people are canceling each other that they're doing so? This might be a really loaded question, so you let me know, please. Though this is where my mind is going. Like, if people are canceling each other out there, are they doing so because they can't like literally mentally handle like somebody else's belief? Like they're hearing other people's beliefs that don't resonate with them, and so they're canceling. Do you think that's what's going on, or what do you think?
In part, I think a lot of it is, speaking for myself. Um, I'll give you a perfect example. There's I don't forgot what her name is. There's a very popular atheist YouTuber, a female, and I used to watch her when I got interested in apologetics. I used to watch a lot of atheist videos, and hers was one of them I watched. I can't remember what her name is.
This section has been removed upon request.
And we want to feel superior to
Mm,
people,
mhm.
you know. And many times I've fallen into the trap of using my knowledge to what I've learned to lord it over people, especially when I used to teach middle and high school. I'm the teacher.
Have you ever felt like you wanted to cancel on someone?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. And
I
when
just
you had that, what was your strategy? Did you try, what did you try to do when you felt that way?
that is the what they call in the Christian theology the process of sanctification. In other words, Jesus saves you, right? So you're saved, you're going to heaven. That's taken care of. Your eternal state is taken care of at the cross. But then you're still alive and you still have living to do, right? You're not perfect like Jesus. And so from the time of your salvation until the time you die is a process where God makes you more and more like Christ, that you're never going to be Jesus, but you're going to be like him. You're going to be made with humility and grace and tact and things like that. So the truth of the matter is, for me, it's recognizing that A, that is a sin, and B, God could cancel me, right? So there's a parable. There's a parable that is in one of the Gospels where a man is forgiven of his debts. A king forgives the debt that a servant owed him, right? Forgives him of a lot of money. Okay. So the servant is like, woohoo, I've been forgiven. Right. And goes out and finds a guy that owes him $10 and strangles him, and pay me what you owe. And what do you think the king is going to say about that little transaction? It's not going to be too happy. I just forgave you hundreds of thousands of dollars for every amount. And you're out there looking for your friend and you're holding him to making him pay you $10. Let me tell you what I'm going to do to you now, son. I'm going to throw you in prison and you're going to stay there until you pay off every penny that you owe me. So that's the idea of what God, if I've been forgiven of all of my sin in Christ, then the last thing I should do is to go out and look for specks in people's eye when I myself have this plank in my own. And that's part of what I said earlier about suffering. So God doesn't just tell me these little lessons in my mind. He humbles me through humiliating experiences or difficulty or pain or sorrow or loss or tribulation or, and so literally through physical circumstances, I'm humbled by God so that I don't be the guy who is forgiven much of Jesus and then goes out and says, you stole my fork and you owe me a fork and a spoon and a knife, and I'm just very legalistic and unforgiving toward other people. So that's what constantly keeps me in check. I mean, to be honest with you, that's the mechanism that I use when I feel that way.
All right. Well, let me take a look here again. So that was pretty much things that we agreed on about how we should change our minds. And let's go to the top and talk about the things we agree about here. A statement is true when it corresponds to reality. And you and I both agree. What do you think that means? And or you can ask me any question you want about it too. Either way. We're in the reality together looking at this statement together.
Is there such a concept of reality? Are you like Lawrence Krauss and Peter Atkins that think the universe is an illusion?
Is there a reality?
Are you a Boltzmann brain? Are you a simulation theory? Are you a matrix guy? Or are
So
we
like
really
that's
living in something?
deep into epistemology, and I will go there if that's where you really want to go.
Well, not too
I'm
detailed.
not
I just want to
hoping
know
to
your
go
top
down
thoughts, top of the head thought.
the top of my head thought is a statement is true when our understanding for the meaning of the words that we're using is actually in line with reality. That's how I'm seeing it. Kind of like, so like you're familiar with street epistemology, so like the tic tacs.
Mhm.
Do you think this is a fine analogy for what truth is? I have a box of tic tacs in my hand here. And would you agree that if I were to say that they're odd, the number is odd within the box, and you were to say that they're even, that before we count them, one of us is correct and the other is mistaken?
Sure.
Okay. And then if we pour them out, we find out that they're even, and then we would say the entire time before and after we counted them, you were correct the whole time, and I was the one that was mistaken about the number.
Right. Yeah. The only issue I have with the tic tac analogy
Okay.
is that it smuggles in an empiricist epistemology. So, in other words, we can count tic tacs and agree upon the amount of tic tacs. You see what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, we could also disagree about the amount, right? If
we could disagree about the amount, but if we're going to submit ourselves to finding out who's right and who's wrong, we are going to do this empirically by a methodology of counting tic tacs.
Would you agree that your ability to know the actual true number is in the same way? Would you agree that, how about this? Let me make it a question. Are we both limited to the same method of knowing the number?
I think
In the same way.
We can get into the philosophy of the efficacy of mathematics, but I would say yes. If you presupposed that, and I've accepted that, and I think, and science confirms it. But my issue is with tic tacs and street epistemology is this, and it's very subtle, where when we start off a conversation with objective truth, we can solve that odd even problem by counting, right? When we get to the metaphysical question of God's existence, this is not an empirical question. I mean, it's not like we can't solve it like counting tic tacs. And this was my issue with our quantifying our confidence the other day. I can't count percentage points in my neurons in relation to my confidence. I can count tic tacs. I can't count confidence. And so I think underlying some people's street epistemology, I wouldn't say it across the board about everybody, but the idea that the only way, or maybe the best way, or the only way that we can really solve the cognitive dissonance between the atheist and theist position is through some sort of empirical methodology. That seems to be a tacit assumption.
So like, just to share a bit from where I am at, every single question I ask, I hope to, most of the time, only ask questions that I also am comfortable with answering.
Yeah, that's good. I think that's good.
And then unless it doesn't apply to my belief, like if I'm asking a question about your belief and I don't hold it, then it's a little unfair, because if I don't hold it, then it doesn't apply to me. So I'm trying to make it about things that do apply to both of us.
Yeah, no, that's a noble thing. That's good. Absolutely.
Good. And then the other thing is, every single question I ask, the motive behind my question is a sincere one, I hope.
I'm not doubting that.
And I don't think that you are, which it bears repeating, because each question is trying to draw me to your understanding. So I'm trying to move myself to your understanding. And if I struggle to do that, then I need to get better at asking my questions so that I can understand what you're understanding. And so that's what I see this is really kind of about from over here.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: if you were to do that to me, I would be willing to answer it, so long as I felt that you were sincere in the same way, in the same respect. I would be happy with you sending me a list of beliefs, just like I did with you the other week. and I would be happy to be answering your questions, provided it was flipped on me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wish I had more time to do it.
Right. Me too.
You know.
Well, that's the thing. Like, just, in a month or 3 from now, whenever you got the impulse to make a review video, before you have that impulse, give me a ring. Like, I'll answer.
Oh, I'm probably hanging up, not hanging up, but I'm probably, I mean, we have so many other things going on. We have.
Right. That's why I'm saying months and months and months, maybe even year. Just whenever you.
I would love to. Yeah, I don't want to shut the dialogue off.
Yeah, but, right. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Just like whatever.
I've got to get ready for, like, I've got some Mormons I'm going to be talking to in a couple of weeks, I think. And so tomorrow I'm recording a podcast on Mormonism. So okay. I got to shift gears here. But anyway, I've got so much other stuff going on.
Do you have to go now?
No.
Okay.
I will have to go a little bit, but
do you have like 20 minutes to a half hour left?
Yeah, about a half hour maybe.
Okay.
So,
okay.
But anyway, I'm sorry. Where did I cut you off?
Really, I was just going down the list and only talking about the places in which we agree. And if we only have a half hour left, there's no way we're going to get to the parts in which we don't agree. Though,
unless you want to just do those now.
Well, I mean, I'd like to do the whole survey today, though we don't need to. And I know you only have like a half hour left. So let's just move on to the next one.
I could go a little longer. I'll try not to gab too much.
Okay, let's keep our responses shorter then, and then we'll do that. We all share the same reality and only interpret it differently. That's number 2. What do you think that means to you?
Well, God created the world.
Yeah. And this God exists for me as it does for you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's how I'm seeing number 2 also. And that list of beliefs that I sent, I'll put it in the chat again, in which you are confident, not confident in. So like if you were to be interviewing someone, there it is, it's in the chat. That's what I received from you last time.
Mm-hmm.
So I live in Portland, Oregon, right? And probably more than most other beliefs, it's not about religion. It's usually about the nature of truth itself, or it's about something political going on. And oftentimes what comes up more than anything else is astrology.
Mm-hmm.
And you wrote not confident. I also am not confident in astrology. I'm wondering if someone else thinks that astrology is true, is that person mistaken, do you think? Or is one of us mistaken? If we're like, hey, we're not confident and they are confident, must one of us be mistaken about that?
Yes, I think absolutely. You have a standard of truth, you stand by it. If you have a tape measure and somebody cuts it 6 feet, and you say, well, I need it 6 3/4, you better be using the same standard of measurement. And if you think you have the same the correct standard of measurement, use it. And be kind. My mom believes in astrology, and I understand very well what astrology is, where it comes from, why it's attractive to people. And so I'm empathetic, but in the end, I think it's using a standard of truth. I don't think it's legit.
I could talk about this for hours with you. Like, I'm so curious. Like, if you were to do what I do, which is just be at a park and just listen to anything anyone will bring up with you, anything at all, and somebody sits down and then they tell you that astrology is true, what would you do, or how would you investigate that?
Oh, like I said in a couple of the videos I've done, I think there's overlap in asking good questions with street epistemology and just general good conversation. It's not like street epistemology is this novel ice cream flavor that nobody's ever heard of before. It borrows from a classical tradition. I don't agree with its atheist. I think atheism is driving its train still, but I can still affirm
That's so funny
there
because
are
I think of myself first as a street epistemologist, and like all the other labels are attributed second, third, and fourth, maybe even further down the road.
yeah, and it's interesting to see from the inside how people perceive that. And I know that's the criticism that my criticism gets, that I focus on this atheism bit. But I think it's atheism that gives its lifeblood. It's the atheist community that keeps it going. It's the atheist community that gives it its interest and its platform. And so I still think for a majority of people who practice it, you know, for every one Nathan Ferguson, there are a bunch of little guys that go out there with their GoPro and microphone. It's like, I'm an atheist, so I'm going to go get Christians.
You know, I want to share with you something that, and I want to agree with you for a second. I really think, and this is my opinion, that street epistemology needs to be about other things, like other than religious subjects. I would like to see the number of interviews go off into other things like politics and you know,
Sure.
all there's so much to investigate. There's so much to know. And I do feel like it's limiting us to only be considering like either religious or spiritual views. And so
So
in
long,
that
here's,
respect, I agree with you that it needs to be
yeah.
breaking out in all of these different areas.
Well, so long as there's no constraints on this, there's no pope of atheism, there's no pope of street epistemology, you know.
Right.
Anthony wouldn't accept that title even if it was offered to him. But so long as you have the 20-something out there with his GoPro trying to play gotcha with theists, that's the stigma that SE's going to have to overcome. Unless you reel in these people with their excitement for trying to trap Christians in difficult questions, as long as that persists in social media, Facebook, and whatever, and as long as there are those people that want to play with those gotcha channels, then that's going to persist. And as long as, you know, the banner is, hey, street epistemology and American atheists, street epistemology and black non-believers, street epistemology and the atheist community of Austin, as long as that persists, it's going to be perceived by people that know nothing about it as just atheists trying to catch Christians. That's the general public. I think the persona outside the bubble.
So I can't emphasize this enough. If you, for any reason at all, feel that I am doing that with you, then I need you to tell me so I cannot do it anymore or not release this, because I would rather do this with you and not put it online than put it online and lose rapport with you forever.
No. I would say this so other people can hear this. I mean, if there are good,
well, that's part of it.
Yeah,
no, I'm more interested in the relationship than I am in making content. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I have no sense. I mean, I don't know you really, but I don't have any reason to distrust you. I'm willing to trust you. There are people that I've talked to who are street epistemologists that I absolutely think have ulterior motives.
Right.
It doesn't make them.
I agree with that too. It's like hard. Like, are we going to remove our biases completely? Like, how do we do that? Like, I try. So like, normally I only stick to questions, and this I'm making many statements, and making all these statements is really confusing me. Like, I don't know, am I doing SE or are you interviewing me, or like what's going on?
Well, I don't think it needs to be something that I think you take what is good. This is what Christianity does. I could look at ancient Greek mythology. I got an author, what's his name? Coming up. I don't know if I got a book. Yeah, here we go. I got a Christian apologist I'm interviewing in June who takes Greek mythology and pulls out of Greek mythology what he thinks is redeemable truth for Christians to utilize. And the reason this fascinates me is because I hear atheists all the time tell me that Christianity is just an offshoot of Greek.
Hold on, can you hold up your book again? We'll both hold up our books.
Yeah, I just got that one.
You did, right?
Yeah, I'm interviewing Lewis in June, but I want to dispel the notion that, hey, look, if God is true, if God is real,
yeah,
mythology makes sense.
Right.
Like a bunch of counterfeit $100 bills don't disprove currency; they actually point toward currency, right? There wouldn't be counterfeits if there wasn't a real thing. And so anyway, my point is that you can find truth in anything. because the cheek phrase is all truth is God's truth from a theistic Christian perspective. And so there's truth in Greek mythology. There's truth in Babylonian number systems. There's truth in there can be truth in astrology, and we'd have to have that conversation. I don't mean that astrology is true,
Right.
but there are
It could
certain
be like
aspects.
there could be maybe like a subtle influence of like Jupiter on my brain somehow, and
I
how
can
we
tell
use
you,
it is a
we
different
can
story.
go into the idea of what a medieval influence was in the stars and stuff. I did my whole master's thesis on this. But anyway, that's a side issue. But so there's truth in everything. And like Jesus used the example of he told the Pharisees and Sadducees, the religious leaders, about the parable of the Good Samaritan. And Samaritans were hated. So imagine Jesus coming to us today and saying the parable of the homosexual, of the good homosexual. That's the kind of level of offense that Jesus leveled at the Pharisees and Sadducees and said, here is a Samaritan. You hate Samaritans. This guy is doing what you need to go do. Go and do likewise. Go and do like this guy is doing. Yeah. And so Jesus uses that. I don't mean to put down gay people, but that would be just the cultural smack that Jesus laid on the Pharisees who look down their nose at people like that. I don't do that with gay people. I don't mean that. I mean, anyway, that's another issue too. But what am I saying? All truth is, so if there's good in street epistemology, I'll find it. If there's good things to say, that's why we do the atheist.
Well, I hope that you find it with me, and if I'm ever out of line, I would like to know. And just whenever that happens, just holler at me. Number 7, let's go there. This one, we both disagree to this strongly. Some beliefs should never be questioned. And
well, there's irony in that answer, though.
I have so much to say about it, but I'd rather just interview you. So what do you think about this one?
There's irony in this statement that you could say, well, the question is something you should never question, never questioning, right? So yeah. really, there's a sort of a infinite regress of, wait a minute, should I never question that question?
Well, this is why I invite your criticism, though I would like, if you're going to criticize any of the videos that I do, that you talk to me about it, at least of the ones that I do. Maybe like other content creators, go for it. Though if you're gonna,
those take so long to do.
I can only imagine the production value in your videos is actually pretty good.
All those graphics are individual PowerPoint slides turned into JPEGs and used as stop motion animation.
Well, that's what it looked like. I was like, how is that? It looks like Bill Nye the Science Guy transitions, sort of like. It's actually pretty well done. Like, I don't know if I'll be able.
It was hard. It takes 2 or 3 days to build all the PowerPoint slides, and then I put the PowerPoint slides as JPEG images in my video editor, and I just line them up, and so you just have stop motion. And so I have those take for so long to do.
Well, I am really happy that you're making this content because I also strongly disagree with number 7, and I like being questioned.
Yeah,
it gives me a chance to respond to something, and also just check on myself. So, all right. Let's go to the next one. Someone can be certain something is true yet still be mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think that means?
Pretty much what it means.
Okay.
Nothing taking it say really.
Okay. Can someone have a personal experience that something is true yet still be mistaken based on that personal experience?
I don't see how you can experience the world without personal experience. That's primarily how we experience the world.
Okay.
So I think it is absolutely a functional aspect of how we know. What are we going to have without personal experience? So skeptics will tell me that my person, Tom, did this. Your personal experience doesn't count, Ray. It's not evidence. It doesn't count. Like, well, okay. So the problem is you're using your personal experience to try to invalidate mine. So I don't invalidate the personal experience of a Muslim or a Hindu or a Jew. We talk about the validity of a personal experience. We can talk about the personal experiences. Given the supernatural realm, I would anticipate that lots of people have personal experiences with the supernatural in whatever form, right? But to deny that personal experience is not evidence of something, I think is going too far, because that's the
Yeah,
only
I
way
think this
we
one's about
experience.
certainty. I think that's what number 8. Like,
Okay, I don't see the survey, so
sure,
I don't
sure. Let me throw it up again. Someone can be
maybe
certain
babbling.
something. Someone can be certain something is true, yet still be
Oh,
wrong.
okay. Yeah,
Like,
so
if I,
okay, all right, I got sidetracked there. Sorry. Never mind. So go on.
you're
That's
on the
fine.
right
That's
track.
fine.
I think that you're on the right track.
That's
If
fine.
I
I
am
don't I understand.
right, if I'm certain that the number in here adds up to like 32, would you also be certain that I'm correct if you have no access to counting them?
Well, I know there's between 38 and 42 Tic Tacs in the box, so I would
Yeah,
say maybe,
somewhere around there.
it's a pretty good guess. No reason for me to question your certainty. If you're that specific, maybe you're David Blaine and doing a magic trick or something.
No reason to question my certainty?
I mean,
Well,
if you're,
would you allow yourself to also be certain, like absolutely, without question, about my claim about the Tic Tacs?
I would have really no vested interest in your certainty. Okay, I mean, it's Tic Tacs. I wouldn't be that interested in it. If you're certain there's 32 in there, okay, I'm not gonna drill you about that.
Sure.
You know what I
If
mean?
somebody says astrology, because there's like reincarnation, astrology, flat earth, vampires, ghosts, or not ghosts, because vampires, astrology, and reincarnation, those are some things that, and karma, those are some things that you were not certain is true. Can people be certain those things are true, do you think?
Yeah,
Okay.
of course.
I see that you're yawning. So last
That's
time
okay.
I did
No,
not.
I'm good. We're
You're
good.
good.
It's okay.
Because
I'm fading a little bit, but I'm okay.
Okay. Maybe today we'll only stick to the ones that we agree on, and then we'll
Whatever.
save the ones we disagree on for later, maybe. Because last thing I want to do is overextend my time, because I know this is a long process. So let's go on to the next one. We should be satisfied with a test that can only confirm our claim. You and I both strongly disagree with that. Can you imagine someone saying that we should be satisfied with a test that can only confirm our claim?
I think people do it all the time in social media.
Yeah, give me an example. What do you think? What are you thinking?
Oh, people find out I write a book about the universe, or that I make a tweet about the universe. They send me information about the universe in some way that they think establishes their presupposition of naturalism. And so they're absolutely 100% certain that not only here's the data that shows this to be proven and accepted, but this also does away with God and establishes naturalism. And so I mean, it's Twitter, so, of course there's no nuance in that, but there's no uncertainty, if you will, in these, when I get these kind of responses, because what happens is, on Twitter, people immediately go into bunker mode and defensive posture and start lobbing grenades at each other. And you cannot have a chink in your armor when you make a tweet. You have to defend it or not, at the cost and peril of your Twitter reputation. So if somebody tweets me a New Scientist or a Scientific American article that shows why this or that, I was in a long thread the other week about inflationary cosmology.
That sounds like it's a long topic, and it'll take a while to explain. How about this?
Anyway, so yes, I agree. You asked me the question.
We both disagree to number 9.
Yeah,
we should not be satisfied with tests that can only confirm our claim.
And I've done that myself. So we're all guilty of that.
Right. There might be like some exception, maybe. I'm wondering if somebody sits down at your hypothetical street epistemology booth and they tell you that reincarnation is true, and you ask them, how do you know that? And they tell you, well, what can you imagine them saying?
The reincarnation is true?
Yeah.
I imagine they would probably talk about yoga and New Eastern mysticism or Buddhism or some kind of spiritual but not religious kind of language. I've had those conversations. I actually had a conversation like that with Carl Sagan's daughter,
Oh,
Sasha,
that's cool.
a beautiful woman. I mean, beautiful as a person, you know, and spiritual but not religious
Would
kind of
you
thing.
would you say would you ask this person how they could test their claim?
No,
Why
not
not?
right away. I would just,
Well, eventually, let's say you talk,
well,
you're
yeah, I
acquainted,
mean,
they're comfortable, you're driving.
yeah, I might, I
Yeah.
might. I mean, I'm not one to go with the test language. I think that's a little too formal and stilted for me. I would be more conversational, literary approach, sort of thought-provoking, philosophical. I don't think I'd necessarily ping them on how do you test that.
Well,
I don't. I think
if you were to see someone else ask that, so a street epistemologist asked that, do you think it would be an unfair question?
see that's this is where for me as a critic, this is where the quagmire of SE gets into. I think when you talk about tests and
Yeah, this is where I want to understand you better.
this is where I think it's street epistemology is way too ambiguous. It seems to presume a standard of truth. It seems to tacitly, unspokenly presume that there could be such a test, or that the person is using a specific method. And so it's kind of, this is what I meant by a leading language. You tell me, what method did I use? Or you ask me, what method did I use, or how do I test?
Right. Would
That
you
is leading
agree?
me down that cattle chute.
Am I doing that right now?
No, I'm saying
Okay.
that question makes me, that's why I think it's leading to say something like that, because now you sort of put the scientist hat on my head, and I don't think that way.
Well, would you
Right?
agree that, like the Tic Tacs, reincarnation is either true or not?
Sure.
And I'm right there with you.
But I think there would be nuance accepting the supernatural world. I think that there would be nuance in that there may be some true things, like Buddha or the Dalai Lama or Gandhi said true things. You know, not everything that they said was true, but I think there is truth in a lot of what they say. That doesn't mean that all roads lead to God. Every religion is true. I'm not saying that. I'm not that open-minded about it, but people can say true statements, you know.
I mean, I agree with that. Yeah, there's true things.
C.S. Lewis, absolutely. C.S. Lewis, in his book Abolition of Man, compiles what he called the what did he call it? The Tao. The idea, he compiled some moral cultural standards from ancient times to the present, and he called it the Tao. And it's like all of these cultures and societies with these very similar ideas about stealing, about adultery, about lying, trying to show that there is a human standard that transcends cultures, times, periods, and epochs. And so I think that, you know, ancient Babylonians to the Egyptians, to the Greeks and the Romans, to us, even atheists, skeptics, and believers, we all have some semblance of the truth, and we can all learn from each other. So I think there's,
Yeah, and I agree with that. Like, so here's the thing: if reincarnation, oh, am I tiring you? I don't want to.
No, I'm cracking my neck.
Oh, okay. If reincarnation was true, hypothetically, if it was true, let's just say it is for a second. Would you want to know if it's true? What does make someone open-minded to anything?
Hey, I would say it this way. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. Though
right. So I would say I would not say that I'm interested in knowing that reincarnation is true. I would say I don't think it's true, but I'm interested to know why you do. So I wouldn't pretend I was interested in it like that. I would say I'm not interested in it, but I am interested in why you think it's true. That's how I would approach that question if I had.
Are you asking me that question right now?
No, I'm saying if I built enough significant rapport with somebody, I would say I'm not interested in embracing reincarnation as a doctrine for my way of life. I think it's miserable. But I would ask the person why they believed it. I wouldn't pretend to be interested in it in that way, but I would be interested in hearing what the person had to say out of respect for the person. I wouldn't feign interest in reincarnation for me personally. Like, oh, if it's true, I want to know. Because I think if you think something is nonsense, I think the worst thing that you could do is tell the person who actually believes it that you're really interested in it, rather than just saying, I have no interest in it for myself, but I am interested in why you believe it. Yeah. And I think some street epistemologists will feign, oh, I if Christianity is true, I want to be a Christian. And in the back of their mind, they're going, I want nothing to do with theism. But they're only saying that to get the person to open up. I think that is problematic.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if that's what's going on, then I would want to be aware. I think the only way I could really know is if somebody were to interview me. Like and I try that a lot. There's like a Discord for street epistemology, and I offer up beliefs of my own, and people challenge me with questions a lot to get me thinking. Mm-hmm. And then I pull away from it, and I think and think and think, and I come back and I have better answers the next time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just to put the survey aside for a second, I'm just for my own curiosity, and this is I can cut this out of the interview if you want, and this is mostly a personal question. So have you left the country before?
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Sure. You have. Where'd you go?
Oh, where have I been? Egypt.
Oh, that's cool.
Israel, Sinai, Germany.
Wow.
Puerto Rico, that is leaving the country technically. Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's impressive.
I'm trying to think what I did in the military.
Egypt, Germany, Sinai, Israel. Where else have I been? I think that's it. I have to look at my journal. No, I think that's it. So I've been to Mexico many times. I've been to Puerto Rico, Germany, Israel.
I don't want to spend too much time brainstorming where you've been. I'm sure.
No, I'm tired. I'm trying to remember. It's hard to remember when I'm tired. I'm like, what?
I'm gonna let you go in like the next 10 minutes probably because of that.
Sure.
I don't want to overstay. Though I can't remember why I asked you that. I think I asked you that because
you say you're going to ask me a personal question.
That was the personal question.
Oh, have I been out of the country? Oh.
Yeah, only because you didn't mention it, so it's a little out of line for street epistemology to ask a question like that. Okay. Though I was just mostly curious for myself because I have also done some traveling.
Yeah,
where you been?
To India is the place that probably sticks out in my mind the most. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of I stayed there for a month, like 2 years ago, and there's a lot of Hindu and Muslim people there. As a matter of fact, that's like half the country is Muslim and the other half is Hindu, and it's like, and I don't know if that's the right ratio. It's probably off, but I
worked with Muslims in Egypt and Sinai.
There's like 1 billion people there.
I was in Sinai for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. That's something else. It's absolutely phenomenally, hauntingly beautiful.
Yeah. I just wonder, like the people in those countries and the beliefs they hold. Do you ever think about that? Like how many people?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's what I do. That's my job.
This is actually, I didn't intend for this, but this is a good segue for number 10. If all members of a society share a belief, they are justified to hold that belief.
Yep, they are.
Was only going to talk about things in which we agree, though this is like an interesting one.
Well, I guess for me, I would clarify that was a question about justification. Justification means, to me, it doesn't mean that you are necessarily that your belief is true, as much as it is just giving a reason, a solid reason for why you believe it. So I think when you are in a group of people, that is a very persuasive rationale for
dutiful to parents and being part of your society and wanting to be a part of your society. Now, I'm not saying that justification necessarily means that your belief is true, but absolutely being a part of a group, part of the justification for your belief includes inclusion into a community. I think that's just the nature of human beings, is community inclusion. And so wanting to be accepted, I'm not saying that's the best reason to believe something is true, but I think in terms of epistemic justification, that absolutely is a factor. You can't rule that out.
What is the thing that you're looking for when you accept? So like number 10 is about the number of people believing in something being used as a justification to believe something is true. And what is the criteria that the number of people need to have, do you think? Is there something that the number of people need to have for us, for you and I, to be justified to believe what they're saying?
I'm just speaking in terms of in relation to the cultural influence of it. But when we're talking about, you said Hindu or Muslim, we're talking about billions of people that claim to have had supernatural experiences. I would say, if you're a devout Hindu or a devout Muslim, that I would absolutely think that here's a community of people that have had spiritual experiences, encounters, and I would minimize that as encounters with the supernatural. So Hindus' beliefs or Muslims' belief, all of them, or whether it's Mormons or whatever, because the supernatural is real. Mm-hmm. I think you could certainly argue that having these supernatural experiences and a community where you can express those, I think absolutely gives you legitimacy to a justification process. I had an experience, so have these community of people to which I belong, and therefore that provides me with justification. I'm not saying that justification is necessarily sound in this instance or leads to truth, but it absolutely we can't exclude those things as being a part of one's justification. I wouldn't be a Christian if there weren't Christians, right? How would I have ever known if somebody didn't write the Bible, and if I wasn't in a community of believers? How would I ever come to know Jesus without that community, right? Jesus works through people in community. So I think that's absolutely part of the justification. People were sharing Christ with me, and then I ended up going to church and getting baptized. And so, yeah, I would say part of my justification for my belief is the longstanding tradition of the community of Christians that have existed since the time of Christ. And I'm not saying that exclusively demonstrates that Christianity is true. I'm just saying that is part of my epistemic justification for what I believe.
Okay. So in my head, I'm trying to both listen to you and also figure out when to stick out the landing gear for this talk.
You can. I got another 10 minutes if you want.
Okay. That was going to be my question. So let's go to, let's see. So I'm interested in 16 and 23. Are you looking at the survey also, or no?
I see your screen share. Yeah.
Okay.
Because if I go to the screen, I'll lose. You won't see me. I'll get off the screen.
Let's go to 16. I give all claims the benefit of the doubt when I first encounter them. We're pretty similar on this. What are your thoughts on that?
That's part of the respect of getting to know somebody.
Okay.
I'm not going to just, if I meet somebody and they tell me what they believe, I'm not instantly going to just, tear into them.
Right. If I were to say I live in Portland, Oregon, in a house on a city block, would you agree that I do? Or would you give me the benefit of the doubt that that's true?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I probably would too. Okay. So I'm interested in 23 here. Now, if you rather talk about a different one or some other one that you think is more important, this one is of interest to me. The more unusual the statement, the stronger the evidence needs to be, and you're neutral on that. Do you want to tell me why you're neutral?
Because it sounded to me, and both times I took it, like Carl Sagan's extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So I will grant that a miracle claim you'd want to see something. You'd want to have some kind of substantiated, corroborated testimonial evidence or something. I understand that, However, if we take Carl Sagan's Dragon in My Garage in his book, The Demon Haunted World Where This Appears, he's talking about this fantastical creature that only he can see, but he can describe it, but there's no tangible, empirical, physical evidence for it. And so the more fantastic he describes this dragon, the more he goes on to say, well, shouldn't it be up to me to provide fantastic evidence for my fantastic claims? And then that's the chapter from which we get this extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And so you've seen my video on that.
And I didn't see it until after our last talk. So I only saw it this weekend.
So my argument is that
adjectives are subjective. How do I know? I used to teach middle and high school English. Adjectives are not science. You cannot see extraordinary in a laboratory. The whole bit of this argument comes down to the elasticity and the ambiguity and the subjectivity of the word extraordinary. If Apollo 11 was extraordinary, the evidence that we had to back it up was pretty ordinary. But I'm using adjectives. All right, splash down. Do extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence? No. Extraordinary is an adjective, and it all hinges on that. Your idea of extraordinary doesn't fit mine, therefore I'm justified in rejecting any evidence that you give me. That's how it works. Now we return you to our regularly scheduled scrolling through YouTube. I'm Daniel Ray.
That I empathize with people that feel like they want some substantiated, something solid to sink their teeth into, so to accept a miracle claim. But I also have a problem with the elasticity of the subjectivity of these descriptive terms. They're not scientific terms. Jesus did miracles. People did not believe it. They turned right around and said, "What sign will you show us?" And they didn't believe it. And he walked on water. He healed the sick. He turned water into wine. He did these things. He healed people. He got ridiculed, chastised. Nobody believed him. And so I think that is we had this come up with John W. Loftus, our book club, who was pressing this. And John would not even define what he meant by extraordinary. I don't need to. And that's where the ambiguity comes into play, where it's like I went through this with Reid and Pine Creek 3 years ago.
Right, I saw that.
Doug sort of jumped in. It was a conversation with Reid and I, and then Doug jumped in and then tried to do the whole missile and
then. And I wasn't going to bring this up because I didn't want to put you on the spot, because I care about our ability to communicate. But back then, you gave a number for a scale, and since then you didn't want to give me any number for anything. Is it because of that experience that you had with Reid? Is that why you don't want to?
No, it wasn't just that experience. It was, and that was three and a half years ago. I was still in my formal degree for apologetics, and I was doing a lot of reading and research and philosophy and theology and all that stuff.
Right. Well, what I mean to say is you gave a 95 back then, and then Reid gave you other claims to see how your number would slide, depending on the extraordinary nature of a claim. And what do you tell me? What do you think happened there? What happened?
Well.
And if there's one thing that I personally hope you take away from this conversation, is that by someone saying they don't believe something doesn't necessarily they're saying that it can't be true.
I understand. I do understand.
And I think that's a very, very common mistake that a lot of people make.
So your unbelief is based on evidence or lack thereof. In other words, you have a set of criteria that this doesn't match, and you've rejected it on those grounds.
Yes. That when you have an extraordinary claim that the evidence should match it, and if it doesn't, then we're kind of left asking ourselves, what claims are we going to believe?
So when you say, I know that comes from Carl Sagan, the extraordinary claims,
Yeah.
the invisible dragon in the garage.
Right.
So my point is, when you come down to the extraordinary aspect of it, that seems to be a very subjective thing that empirical science cannot finally establish. So what constitutes criteria for extraordinary? This is not a scientific question. This is a matter of adjectival predilection for, is this extraordinary or not? Like going to the moon was extraordinary. A photograph of Armstrong walking around the lunar dust is a photograph. That's not extraordinary by evidentiary means. That's a normal means.
Instead
go
of
ahead.
instead of looking at it in absolute terms, let's view it in relative terms. The word extraordinary. So let's say I told you that I owned a car. Would you consider that an extraordinary claim?
It depends on your financial situation, or if you're 5, or
As a 46-year-old professional male who has
no, it's not extraordinary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
If I were to say I live in Portland, Oregon, in a house on a city block, would you give me the benefit of the doubt that that's true?
Yeah.
now, if I told you, so we're setting a bar now. Doug has a car.
But
Not that
our definition of extraordinary is still subjective. We're still determining a subjective sense.
What I'm trying to do now is just rank levels of extraordinary. So I'm not talking about absolute levels. I agree with you that extraordinary could be absolutely different levels.
Subjective.
So, but I want to see if we agree on what's
Yeah,
the ranking.
I know I
So we got Doug has a car, not that extraordinary. What if I told you that I'm making a claim now, I own a nuclear missile?
well, I would doubt it, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
Right. You doubt it, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
And
It's
would
not
you agree? Would you agree it's a little more of an extraordinary claim than me owning a car?
Yeah. So I see what you're doing in establishing the degrees of extraordinary, but that you and I would agree on something doesn't establish that, like that hammer is red. It just says Dan and Doug agree that this is here. It doesn't. We can't see it like a beach ball or a coffee pot.
Okay, but let me take it one step further now, because I'm going to put two things together here: the ranking of extraordinary. Now, lastly, if I told you I had an interstellar spaceship that can travel back in time, but I think we would agree on the ranking of.
I would actually say that last one would not be. It would be surprising, but in this day and age of competitive space race, I would say, hey, maybe Doug's got something he's just not told anybody.
But it's more extraordinary. It's more extraordinary than a nuclear missile because there's thousands of nuclear missiles on this planet, and yet there's no interstellar space time traveling.
I would invert those two. I would say your nuclear missile would be more extraordinary than a spaceship.
Yeah, an interstellar, going from star to star.
Oh, interstellar. Excuse me, I skipped right over that important.
Yeah, I was wondering, am I hearing you right? You think?
Yeah, no.
So the reason why I'm saying all this is because if we agree on those rankings, from car to nuclear missile to interstellar spaceship, then I think the evidence goes with it. If I said I had a car, that's not that big of a claim, and let's say you doubted me for some reason because you thought I was broke. And then I actually took the video camera out and showed you the car, and that's good enough. Okay, I believe you now, Doug.
Yeah, sure.
You might doubt more, but you'd probably be satisfied with that.
Yep.
Now, nuclear missile, my guess is you'd want more.
Well, you just have to show me the missile. Not extraordinary.
But my question to you, Daniel, and please, I want you to answer as honestly as you can.
I will.
Would you require the same amount of evidence for those two claims? I own a car and I own a nuclear missile. Would you have the same level of?
It would just depend on what I'm trying to get out of you, Doug. If you want to say, I would not put any stock in the car unless it perhaps had some bearing on what you and I would be doing in future interactions. The missile claim, it's just, it would depend on whether or not we're entering. If you're selling me the missile or the car, then I'm going to be vested in that. And I would want to see those things.
So am I hearing you right that you would believe me if I said I had a car and I said I had a nuclear missile, And if I gave you a photograph of a car, if that sufficed for you for the car, it would also suffice for you with the nuclear missile.
But in terms of, you said with the car that this is you, this is a picture of you with the car. And I think it would suffice for me. Okay, I have no stake in this claim. Doug says that's his car. That's his car.
We're talking about the idea of evidence matching the level of evidence matching the level of the claim.
But the level of evidence would be the same. It would be a certificate of ownership. It's a piece of paper.
Yeah, Daniel, I sense you know where I'm going with this, and you're pushing back hard.
Yeah, I do. I've had this argument with a few people online, but not in person. But we haven't gone to the extent that I think we're going. But the evidence, to me, the idea of it being extraordinary is a subjective assessment made by the individual, not scientific.
Can you repeat back to me what the purpose of my question is?
To determine whether or not we agree on levels of extraordinary.
Rankings, right?
Rankings, yes. And so you and I can agree that you claiming that you own a missile is unusual. But the proof that would demonstrate that would be ordinary. It would be documentation that we would rely upon.
Yeah,
I think that's where we disagree, because you would show me a piece of paper, you would show me the photograph.
I actually think you're being disingenuous right now, and I hate to say it, because I think in your life, you live your life exactly the way I'm describing it. When you hear a claim and it's sort of bizarre to you, and I think you would doubt it more and require more evidence before you believe it, compared to a different claim that you don't find bizarre. I think that's fair to say.
No, because I agree with you that if you were to say you owned a missile, I would be instantly curious. But if I have nothing vested in it, Doug, I'm not going to press you for
okay,
evidence.
let's use the word curious. Would you be more curious about the nuclear missile than the car?
Not really, because at that level, you've kind of subjected yourself to a level of something that's not normal. But if I don't have any vested interest in it, your missile claim is likely to end the conversation. Okay, Doug.
Since you know where I'm going with this and you're pushing back hard.
How does the vested interestness of it relate to the extraordinariness of it?
Well, I was saying earlier, if he wanted to sell me these things, then I would have a vested interest in it. If I was like,
I know we're probably talking in circles here, but I'm going to give it one last try.
Sure.
What type of evidence, if I made a claim that I have an interstellar spacecraft, what evidence would you need to believe me?
I really wouldn't pursue the question.
Is that an honest answer?
Other claims to see how your number would slide, depending on the extraordinary nature of a claim. And what do you tell me, what do you think happened there? What happened?
Well, number one, I was frustrated by Doug's intrusion.
Uh-huh.
Because I immediately felt like Doug was doing.
Yeah, I really wish it was Reid asking you, not Doug.
And Doug jumped in.
Doug is a little.
I didn't know him, and I reached out to Reid and wanted to have a conversation with Reid. I like Reid; he was a nice guy. I watched some of his things.
Yeah.
And I was in my apologetics degree. Part of my apologetics degree was get out there.
More cordial than me.
Yeah. Well, and part of my apologetics degree, I had to get out, and I had assignments to get out and engage people that don't believe like I did.
Right.
So I was seeking out ways to do that, and it seemed like YouTube was a way to do it. Hey, I'm an apologist in training, and blah, 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 blah. So Doug jumps in, and it sort of happened the same thing I described to you would happen with Tom and I. It's like, Tom doesn't want to talk to me. And I just shut down. And I was frustrated. But the numerical idea, seriously, I've completely changed my mind on that in 3 years after I've completed my degree and written a book. And
yeah, now you're fine with just saying confident, not confident.
Absolutely, because the more I read and the more I studied, the more I understood philosophy and epistemology, which was part of my degree. I had to take formal philosophy classes. I changed my mind on that.
Now, again, informed consent is the name of the game here, and I don't want to push you into a direction you don't want to go. And I do want to end this soon so you can go to bed. Though, is it all right if I challenge you this with questions
Sure.
on this statement? Okay.
Yeah.
Earlier, I said that I asked whether or not you're confident that I'm truthful with you when I say I live in Portland, in a house on a city block. Would you give me the benefit of the doubt that that's true?
Yeah.
So I want to know, are you confident that there's some car outside my house within the city block? Just any kind of car on the curb?
Yeah,
outside
given my prior knowledge about city blocks and neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Are you confident?
It's abductive reasoning.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Are you confident that there's 3 cars outside my house?
Maybe.
Okay. Are you confident that there's 10 cars outside my house on the city block here in Portland, Oregon?
I don't know. I'm not sure I'm following the numerical increase in the amount of cars outside your house. I don't know what the.
Well, okay. Well, are you confident that there's 200 cars outside my house on this one city block here in Portland, Oregon?
I don't think there'd be enough room
on city block for 200 cars.
So you would probably be not so confident in that.
Unless you got a park right across the street or something, or a stadium right across the street, and a Walmart parking lot across the street.
But it's abductive reasoning, right? So if it rains, the ground will be wet, right? It rained, so the ground is wet.
Mm-hmm.
That's deductive logic, right? I saw it rain, the ground is wet. It rained, the ground is wet. Abductive reasoning is, oh, the ground is wet. It must have rained. Well, it's not certain, but it's possible that it rained, right? There's other explanations for why the ground might be wet.
Right.
Sprinklers, somebody washed the car, could be dew, whatever. So there's two. The deduction is if it rains, the ground will be wet. It rained, ground is wet.
Mm-hmm.
Abduction looks at the wet ground and goes, oh, it must have rained, but you didn't have the benefit of knowing whether or not it rained the previous night. And so the questions that you're asking me, I think, are related to abduction, because I can't conclusively deduce that there are that many cars.
Right, not conclusively. Yeah, and that's why I think of this is why I was asking how confident you were, and because you could be right. I'm trying to keep an open mind to what you're saying about confident or not confident, though there is a point at which it seems to flip to not confident, and I'm open to what it is you have to think about that thought experiment and how fair you think that was. Do you think that was fair, or do you have any questions for me about that thought experiment? Was that
with the cars
in a way unfairly, or was that a fair thought?
The only thing I would say is that I know you like to use the number scale.
Well,
and maybe
that's the thing.
Maybe it seems to you that I'm being deliberately uncooperative about the number scale.
I felt like you are being cooperative, and I actually really like talking to you. I'm really just trying to understand why we answer the way we do on the survey. And it could be that because I could be wrong. Like, the most true thing on this survey is 24. It is possible some of my beliefs are not true. So I'm trying to keep that in mind for myself when I ask you questions, because I respect you a great deal, and I want to continue talking to you whenever you have time, though. Anyway, I'm open to any questions. I'm ready to let you go here whenever you want. Though I love talking to you, and I have so much respect for you. And if you have any questions for me, I'm open to answering them.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know. And you respond however you want to. And think about it. Respond to me in a month. It's up to you. But do you really want to know, Nathan, that God is real?
Yes. Emphatically. And the way I want to know that is so today I felt like I wanted to talk about abstractly ways we think about the way we think. So like this survey is they're all just made up. Like we all got together and wrote down things that we heard other people say. And so this is a way of talking about, I see it as a way of asking questions. Like it's a guide, an outline or a guide for a conversation. So two people can ask each other questions about the way they think about beliefs that pertain to how we form beliefs. And so I'm interested in that because if I can figure out the way in which someone formed their belief, then I can apply that to myself so I can know true things, I hope. Now I could be wrong. And how would I know unless I ask questions, right? And being open to answering them myself. And if I'm not open to answering questions, then I would like to know and find out. And I think that you are a sincere, honest, good person, worthy of talking to, worthy of my respect. And we come from different worlds, though I really do appreciate you inviting me to your book club. Like that was so cool. And that you make content and stuff about SE, and you interest me, and I follow your content. I'm a fan of yours. So anyway, I know you've got a lot on your plate and you got to sleep tonight, so I'm going to let you go soon. Do you have any other follow-up questions? Because I'm an open book here, completely a wide open book.
So who is Jesus Christ?
Well, that is a long discussion.
Well, give me a top of the head. Where's Nathan on the person of Jesus? I'm not going to debate you because I'm too tired, but I just want to know what you
right.
think.
I don't know. And I wish I did. If I could give you evidence of what I think I know about it, I would like to satisfy that question, and I really want to. I think the best answer to that is there are people that are sincere, loving, kind, honest people who believe that there's a human being who was sent in flesh from God, who is God. There's some believe that there's a Trinity, and there's different ways to conceptualize it. And all I can say is that the people who believe in this are deserving of respect and kindness, and I want to know how they're conceptualizing it, since I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and I encourage you to do the same in this way with like
I do
with like Calvinists and like other people, right? Who are like different kinds of who think of the Trinity differently and things like that. And I don't know which one is right. Like the Tic Tacs, we could pour them out and we can count them. Then I could hand it to you and be like, can you count them? And then if they're the same, then I'd be like, okay, well, we can be somewhat certain since somebody checked me. They checked me, they questioned me, and now we can agree. And there doesn't seem to be much of a consensus that from my perspective. Now I could be wrong, and maybe there's more of a consensus than I'm willing to acknowledge. Maybe there is, and I do want to know, and I'm interested. And if you invite me to your book clubs, I will go. Probably not every single time, but I will go.
All right.
And I think that this Unitarian thing that you've got going on, that you have like you invite all sorts of people, like that. I see myself in you about that. Like I want to do that sort of thing, right? I want to be a part
where I get that. You know where I get that from?
Where do you get that from?
Basically, the gospel in a nutshell, John 3:16. For God so loved the world,
right?
And that Greek word is cosmos. God so loved the cosmos, and that means an ordered system of everything He created, including you and I, that He gave His only begotten Son, that whoever so should believe in Him should not perish but have everlasting life. And so the gospel, the message of salvation that you articulated, is open to everyone. And so as a Christian, I am commanded to obey the Great Commission and to go, to make disciples, to extend the invitation to the kingdom of the heavens. And so God works through the agency of human beings. Why he uses us, I don't know. He loves us. We're knuckleheads. But I think, Nathan, that our relationship and the favor that God has bestowed to us, I think, is God's extending his hand for you to consider his son Jesus. You know, I can't force anybody to do that, but I believe, as I've been a believer for 28 years, and I don't just accidentally have people cross my path. And so, you know, I would leave you with this.
Yes,
I
sir.
was thinking about a scripture to share with you, and I was like, I don't know. But I kept coming back to this passage at the end of Acts chapter 5. This is after the ascension of Jesus. The apostles are telling everybody that Jesus is resurrected from the dead. And some of the apostles are brought before the council, the Sanhedrin, and the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and they're exhorted to stop talking about Jesus. And so a council member stands up and he asks that the disciples be put outside for a minute. He says, put those guys outside. Let me say something to the council. And his name was Gamaliel. And Gamaliel stood up, and he's not a Christian. He doesn't believe. But he says to the council, he says, men of the council, he says, you know, a couple of years ago, this guy started an insurrection, and then had some followers, and then he was killed, and they scattered. And then a couple of years later, then this guy came up, and they killed him, and his followers scattered. And he's relating this to the apostles. He's like, look, if this is not of God, this will scatter out and die out. But if this is of God, men, don't be found fighting against God. You will not be
found
able
what?
to
Sorry,
do
that last part you cut out a little bit.
Don't. He's exhorting his fellow Jews. Don't prevent these men from doing this. This might be of God. This might actually be true. This might be of God. And you don't want to be found fighting against God.
Right. If you are correct about all this, then I want to dig into it. Like, that's the whole point.
So that would be my exhortation in general.
That is a good note to end this on, because we can agree on that.
And I would say that to not just you, Nathan, but in general to street epistemologists who have the specific agenda of trying to turn Christians away from the God who loves them.
So, like, I would say other people are bringing that idea to my table. So my table's just open. I say, what do you believe? Now, other street epistemologists, they might go, can I talk about your God belief? That might happen.
Right.
I personally, Nathan here, just puts up a sign and says, what do you believe and why do you believe it? And I might give rarely to see if somebody consents to something that I would.
Sure. I'm not saying that you are after theists.
I just want to point out that, like, by and large, street epistemology itself, like, it's a community of people, right?
It is.
And like each person's got their own agenda. So and my hope is that we're trying to stay open, and I think
the community.
I think you are too. I think you are too.
The community that gives SE life is the atheist community. And my underlying foundational criticism of SE, and what I would tell any SE, whatever their motivations may be, I'm not saying this about you, Nathan. I don't see it in you to be like anti-theistic. I mean, maybe you are. I don't know. But I would exhort any excited street epistemologist who wants to go out there with the GoPro and the camera to really take an internal stock and say, am I so confident that God likely doesn't exist that I'm willing to make a video of myself trying to talk Christians out of their faith and turn them away from God? But that's a very heavy ethical issue. And I think there are too many people, and I've seen it, I've experienced it,
that take this. Well, of course, atheism is true.
When
Of course,
you-
Christianity is ridiculous.
When we were talking about reincarnation and traveling the world earlier,
Mm-hmm.
and I am trying to stick the landing gear out for us both so
Sure.
that you can go to bed. Though, like, are you saying, like, if you go to India or somewhere else in the world and somebody's telling you their earnest, sincere belief that reincarnation is real, let's say, like, it's a lot of people, like Hindus and Buddhists, and then how many,
Right.
I don't even know, like probably many other sects, right? Are you saying that because number 19, I often investigate beliefs that do not match my own. Like, would you
Right.
honestly, if you were to ask them a question about reincarnation, are you open to what they're saying?
I'm open to hearing why they believe it. I'm not open to receiving it. No, I would tell them. I'm not interested in embracing the
So,
doctrine
like,
for myself.
I am interested and open to receiving what you say about Christianity.
Well, that's good. It started with sort of attacking Christian theism, and I know it's morphed.
What would you need to see to think that that's not happening with street epistemology?
No more open-mindedness to theistic ideas. So here's a great example of that I can give. I've never seen a street epistemologist concede an ounce of any truth that would be emanating from a theistic worldview.
Yeah, so that list of claims that I gave you, and you wrote confident, not confident. And if I took the opposite position on any one of those claims, and I could not provide something that would draw me to your understanding, like basically if I just outright say, nothing will make me confident in this thing, would I be open-minded?
I'm not sure that there are people that, I mean, maybe there are. Are there people that don't actually engage in some way with beliefs that are contrary to their own? I think everybody does that, whether it's consciously or unconsciously.
Would you
Right.
honestly, if you were to ask them a question about reincarnation, are you open to what they're saying?
I'm open to hearing why they believe it. I'm not open to receiving it. No, I would tell them. I'm not interested in embracing the doctrine for myself.
I am interested and open to receiving what you say about Christianity.
Well, that's good. But I think you can be open-minded to a fault. I'm not saying you, but
right.
if you can't possibly be, I'm going to say you again, I'm just in general. I don't think any of us are open-minded to the extent that we would accept anything about everything from everyone. There are certain things in the back of your mind, Nathan, that you are closed on, and that's okay.
I'm sure of it.
That's
24.
just the way we are. Yeah, of course you are. I would not fault you for having a closed-minded mentality, but I'm pretty solidly sold on the question here, and that's fine. What I am addressing directly are those practitioners of street epistemology whose fundamental back of the mind, under the table intention is to deliberately undermine Christians for views on YouTube. That kind of mentality that I'm going to go play gotcha.
Well, maybe the next time we
theists.
talk, I'm open, sincerely open to you interviewing me in question form about the reasons why I do this with other people, because I would love to. I would love to be challenged on that, and I'd love to try to explain it, and I'd love to be heard, and I'd love to be questioned, and if I'm wrong, then I'd love to find out also. So one of these days, like, let's try again, and we can maybe like plan ahead. Like, you can be like, hey, I'll question Nathan about his motives and why he would do SE with anyone. Or I encourage you to take this link that I sent you and bring it to somebody else and go through the survey with them, because it's designed so that way more than one person, you can have as many people as you want fill this out, and you can see the diversity of beliefs about our beliefs. And then you can just ask each other questions to resolve each other's understanding about how we know what we know. And that's to me, it's about fun.
Here's something about the survey you might want to keep in mind.
Please.
In terms of, and this is just my impression.
Okay.
It's a good survey. There's good questions. I think it's great.
I want to know your impression. Yeah. And your opinion.
It's good to have it
and like in the conference that we did, that was completely normal to feel like I would get a survey in a conference room where I came to learn something. I think an initial
you did, right? You came to my class.
Yeah. No, I'm saying that in that environment, that's great. Right. I think that where it kind of goes awry for me, again, this is what I said at the beginning when we started talking tonight, that it does kind of take on like the ink blot test feeling.
Yeah,
a little bit.
So much. Yeah, it's like
I think it's
team together. You look at this and you tell me what it means.
And this is another issue I have with it. It's street epistemology, and I've heard you guys talk about this. It involves psychology, and nobody that I know in street epistemology is a licensed clinical psychologist or psychiatrist.
You mentioned it the last interview. Mark Solomon, he's a psychologist.
Okay, so
no, Mark not all of us are. Just that
right.
Way.
So because I've gone to counseling a lot in my life for depression a lot, and so part of our conversation had a clinical feel to it, and so between the quiz, and I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that what gives me the structured vibe of going down the cattle chute, if I to use that analogy again, are the structured questions and the sort of clinical psychologizing. I feel like
Can you name the moment where you felt that way the most in this?
Yeah, so I was getting to that. Right. So when you mentioned the survey the last time we talked, I was like, cool, we'll talk about that. And then when you said you had the one from the one night and the one from the other night, and you were going to compare them, I thought, okay.
I said I wasn't going to hold you to the way you previously answered.
But you had the two there.
This
is impression.
I wrote down a hard copy of the way that you filled out.
Oh, great. So let's see if I'm consistent.
Well, that's the thing. To me, like the way you view things now, I mean, if you changed your mind, that doesn't mean that you're being inconsistent. I don't think.
So do you have the two to compare, or you just have the one?
I do. I have the two to compare. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Though I don't think that I'm going to hold you to the way you previously.
I don't mind. So you were going to compare them. I thought, okay.
I said I wasn't going to hold you to the way you previously answered.
But you had the two there. This is impression. I felt like at that point, I said, well, maybe Nathan, he wants to find some kind of holes, inconsistencies in my epistemology. But no matter.
If I found them, would you want to know about your own inconsistencies, or would you?
Well, I don't. I would have told you that. I said the second survey was a direct result of watching you walk through the first one, and so it was heavily influenced by the way you answered the questions with our group that night. But I think so I don't like the way Ty uses. He's good at it.
Forget about Ty. Talk about me.
I'm using the example because I'm not seeing you use it on somebody. I've seen Ty use it on somebody.
Okay.
So he, I don't know if you watched. Did you watch the video with Ty? The one with the conference?
I've seen virtually every SE video.
Okay, so Ty
that I can find
keeps pressing Jacob for a number.
Right, and so just so you know, Tyrone, like a lot of us practice this and we start off not being so good and then we get better over time. Like if you wanted to, you could go to my earlier videos, which are just really bad, and you could break them down, but it's not who I am today, right? Like
sure.
Really terrible.
Absolutely. That's why I was trying to be as nice as I could about the way I reviewed it. But there was a point I wanted to make about. And
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay. The issue for me is that Jacob doesn't know what's going on. And I struggled with that because I thought, so there's one point in the video where I stand up for Jacob. And I do so kind of to make a point. So Jacob is saying something like, well, I don't see how this could be the case. I think he was talking about biology and cosmology or something.
Yeah.
And Ty throws up on the screen that Jacob is doing an argument from ignorance, okay? Because Jacob says, I don't see how it could be this way. So Ty says, argument from ignorance. Now,
Right.
if you are listening empathetically to Jacob, yes, Jacob said, I don't see how it could be otherwise. Granted, I grant you that. But I was steel manning what I thought Jacob was really trying to do.
Right.
And what was he really
You're
trying
right about
to do?
that. You are right about that.
He was really trying
right.
to make a cumulative case.
So,
Okay?
well, so now that's the part where I'm not so sure. Let me.
Well, he says, I'll finish up and then you can.
Okay.
He says, he starts with biology and then he talks about his cosmology friend.
Yeah.
And then he talks about the disciples and he says there are other things. And Ty keeps trying to isolate a one thing and reduce Jacob's confidence in that one thing, and then move on to something else and reduce Jacob's confidence in that, move on to something else. So yes, I would, and I didn't say it that well in the video, but it was by design. I threw out there I didn't say I was steel manning Jacob's position, but that's what I was doing. I took the fact that I was listening to Jacob very carefully. I was listening to Ty very carefully.
Right.
And I hope I steel man Ty as well. I mean, I let him.
And I respect you for that, for at least trying that. Yeah.
And even I said, if you don't believe me, watch what Ty says here at the end of the video. And he says, it's fun to be an atheist and I like to demolish arguments. I think, well, there he is. He said it. Okay. I don't hate Ty for it. That's what he does. But Jacob was trying to build a case. And he would say, it's not just that thing. It's this thing. It's not just that thing. It's this thing. But Ty was like, is it the one thing? Is it the one thing?
Well, here's the thing. And if you interview someone else in reincarnation and they give you 5 reasons to get to their 90%,
yeah,
and you ask them, if I take away this reason from you, would you still be 95%? And they say, yes, I would. Do you think that person's really using that as their reason to get to 95? Or,
well, again, that gets back to what I think about the confidence scale in general.
Well, that's what
I'm saying.
The confidence scale is so that we can ask people, if I take this from you, will it affect your confidence at all? And if they say no, how can we know that's really their reason? Maybe it's not their reason.
Okay, but did you notice that in one sense, Ty was not satisfied with Jacob's answers? In other words, like if you want to get to know what I believe, like you accepted what I said about the Bible, we didn't argue about it. I mean, I'm not saying you believed it, but you didn't.
I can just listen.
You just asked me a question and you just like, okay, cool. But with Ty, it was like, well, Jacob, let me just ask you a question. And he kept trying to it was really friendly and really nice, but he just kept trying to poor Jacob was like in this thing. Now, here's the end result of that. So Jacob doesn't know that Ty's going to billboard this as a gotcha video. I mean, I'm sure Jacob consented to it, but do you see, go fast forward, rewind that tape, and Jacob sits down. Hi, I'm Ty. You're a theist. I'm here I want to use this video to embarrass your logic and reason.
Well, so did this is a question. Did Ty ask, can I talk about your God belief? Or did the other guy?
Yeah, I think Jacob mentioned God belief, absolutely. But I think that's also why Ty was there. It's like fishing, right? I'll take a perch in my quest for salmon.
Okay.
Right? I'll take the little fish for the big one that I'm after. And so I think that's what a lot of street epistemologists do. They'll sort of wade through, I'm not saying you, but they'll wade through the politics and the karma and the ghosts and all that stuff to get to, I mean, come on, Nathan, you and I know, what's the most popular videos on street epistemology? The ones where the Christians are, those get a lot of views, right? Because you knock a theist off their feet and 10,000 views, 15,000 views or whatever.
Well,
that's fun. It's fun to watch.
Put me in touch with somebody who is, an authority in this matter, and I'd love to investigate that belief from that person.
Did you get Tim McGrew's email?
Did I?
book
No, I
club.
don't think I did, but you should send it to
Was in
me.
the
I'd
chat.
love to interview him. That would be
I don't
great.
know what his schedule is like, but Tim is a master rhetorician and philosopher on epistemology. He's written a whole book. I have it right here. Tim McGrew, Foundations of Knowledge, right here.
Oh,
He
yeah.
is a preeminent, world-class
I see this as a team effort.
philosopher.
Like, I'm not so like I'm gonna try to really actually stick out the landing gear this time, because I will talk to you all night. Like, if you let me, I would just keep talking with you, because I think it's really easy to talk to you. Let's stay in touch. Let's give each other a break for a couple weeks. I'll put up some content on my channel. I'm sure you'll follow it. If you have something to ever say, please don't hesitate to give me a ring. And one of these days, I would like to try to go through this whole survey with you, and maybe even whoever you want. Like, I would be willing to take this whole thing to the entire book club, even, because you can have as many people fill it out as you want. Like, it's all good. Just hit me up. And I really respect you. I watch your videos now. I've subscribed to your channel, and
Cool.
And yeah, man, it's good. It's good talking to you. Do you have anything else to say or ask of me before we go?
Only that from here until September, on top of whatever church speaking schedules that we will have as the summer opens up and churches open up. So I'm not dodging you, Nathan. I'm just
No, not at all. You're very engaging. Is it okay with
level,
you? Is it okay with you if I add your information in the description?
You put whatever you'd like.
Because I would like to help promote your stuff, and
sure, you're probably gonna get smacked around by a few street epistemologists for liking you so much. I don't,
fine. They can ask me. They'll probably ask me and be open to why I am being so nice.
Sure, right.
Then I'll tell them.
But I say all that my summer schedule is stacking up, not to avoid you, but to say that any kind of conversational commitment like this, I simply will not have the time.
Trust me. No obligation.
But I'm not cutting off communication. Email me or whatever.
Okay. I know. All right, I'm gonna go to bed.
Thank you. I'm so
Thank
tired.
you. Go to bed. Good night.
All right.
Sleep
Good
well.
night. See you later.
See you, man.
Bye-bye.